The Meeples and Miniatures podcast is sponsored by Two Fat Lardies, Geek Nation Tours, and the generous donations of you, the listener. Thank you to everyone for your continued support. We really appreciate it. Thanks a lot. The Meeples and Miniatures podcast, episode 239. Review of 2017, with hosts Neil Shuck, Mike Hobbs, and Mike Whittaker. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Meeples and Miniatures podcast. My name is Neil Shuck, and on this show I am joined once again by the Welsh wizard himself. It is, of course, Mr. Michael Hobbs. How are you, sir?
Hello, Neil. Hello, Meeps. Happy New Year. Happy 2018. Who would have thought we would get this far?
I was coming to that. Yes. Yes, Happy New Year, everybody. And while we're at it, let us wish a Happy New Year. Hello, it's Meeples Tower calling parts foreign. Hello, come in parts foreign.
Hello, this is Mission Control in Minneapolis.
Hello, and how are you, sir?
Cold.
Why is it snowing out there?
It's minus 22, which I think is about minus 10 Fahrenheit.
It's fine. Just stay indoors.
Well, it's a great advantage of Minneapolis. You can. The entirety of downtown is linked by skyways. You never actually have to set foot outside.
And so the reason for that is because if you set outside, yes, you would.
Your ears will drop off, and your nose, and your fingers. Yes,
and something else if you happen to be a brass monkey. But there we go. Welcome both, and Happy New Year to you.
Thank you.
Happy New Year to you as well, as you're listening. Yes, this is the first episode of 2018, and as such, it's going to be our look back at last year and now traditional gaming review of 2017. This year, we're just going to be chatting about our top 5 games, our biggest disappointment, and I think probably our favourite or best gaming experience of the year. I think that's where we're going on this. So we'll be counting down our top 5 games, and in a massive spoiler alert, and probably the first time ever, actually each of our top 5s is completely different.
We couldn't have planned it better.
We couldn't.
No. Indeed, shock and indeed horror. Wow. So, because we're not going to, because obviously it's our first show of the year, and we're going to leave everything about what we've been up to and gaming and modelling and stuff. We're going to leave that to our next show. Okay, we're going to leave that to our next show. So all this is going to be, we'll just leap straight in, and we will do our top 5. But before we do that, just to clear up one issue that was left over from 2017, I'd just like to say, John, thank you for the cake.
It did arrive then.
Did it arrive?
It did arrive. Eventually. Apparently, it had been across the road at the neighbours for at least 3 days. Except that we didn't have anything through our door to say that they got it. So yeah, it had been here, there, and everywhere, which will probably account for why we weren't opening it at the same time. It had been delivered to a different house.
Very nice cake, though.
Oh yes,
Lovely cake.
Yum.
Yes, marvellous.
Very nice cake. I decided mine was best not left till I got back, so it's been eaten.
I'm still chopping through the bits of mine, but yes, very nice indeed. Thank you, John.
So thank you, John.
Yes,
indeed.
Definitely.
Well, with that point of order out of the way, I think it's time to leap in. So we will start with our top 5 games, and then a couple of the other things will be interspersed as we go along.
I don't like it, Sergeant.
Me neither, sir.
Good Lord, it's really looking pretty bad.
Yes, sir. It happens every time, sir. It's too predictable, sir.
How far do you think we've advanced, Sergeant?
6 inches, sir. It's always 6 inches. We advance 6 inches, then Jerry gets a go. The lads are calling it high go, you go, sir.
I go, you go. Good grief.
And they don't like it, sir.
Oh. Not like it. Seems pretty straightforward to me. Rather like cricket. We have an innings, then the other chap does.
Well, that's all very well, sir, in cricket, sir, but begging your pardon, it ain't like that, sir, in war. I don't think Mr. Hitler plays like that.
What, Hitler? No, gosh, he'd like to go all the time.
Oh, Lord, sir, lummy. Whew. Well, sir, anyway, sir, it's like this, sir. If it carries on like this, high go, you go, me and the lads won't be coming to your Thursday evening games club, and that's the way it is, sir.
Looking for more of a challenge with your World War II games? Are you tired of the predictability of I go, you go systems? Iron Bean Shopman provides real command challenges on an unpredictable battlefield. Two fat lardies, playing the period and not the rules since 2002. Pip pip.
The nation is vast. There are battlefields of old, great convention halls, and worlds of fantasy to explore. Who will guide us across this great geek nation?
Since 2010, Geek Nation Tours have been providing holidays for groups of like-minded people. Whatever your nature of geek, tabletop gaming, TV, film, comic books, sports or science, Geek Nation Tours caters for you. Visit www.geeknationtours.com for more details and join the great Geek Nation. Top 5 games. Shall we start with Mr. Whittaker? What was your number 5 game this year?
Well, my number 5 game was a game I acquired, sold in favour of something else, and then started playing again. Namely, Star Wars Armada.
Are you telling us that this is a game you actually managed to buy twice?
I acquired and then decided that I'm having seen Rogue One that Imperial Assault was going to scratch my Star Wars itch much better than Armada was.
Yes.
And then Dave at the club decided he was going to run Star Wars Armada, so I've actually wound up playing considerably more Armada than I have Imperial Assault, and had a really good time playing it.
Somewhere in there is a lesson, and I'm not sure what it is.
Oh, neither am I. There's probably a very important lesson there. But yeah, it's a really fun little game. You know, if you like your Star Wars ship combats on the sort of 7-inch long dreadnought, Imperial Dreadnought variety, then it's quite cool. Comes with a very nice online force builder that Dave pointed me at, which I'll share a link to in the show notes for anybody who hasn't come across it. Very easy to play. I don't appear to have managed to forget the rules if I don't play it for a month, which is a good sign compared to some games. And I actually seem to win it occasionally, which is very unusual for me.
No, so I must admit, Armada is one of the set of Fantasy Flight Star Wars games I actually haven't played yet. I have no experience with it at all, other than having just kind of I suppose seen it all in the flesh, and but that's about as far as it goes. So no, not played that one.
I guess if you're cynical, it's X-Wing with big ships. and slightly different sided Fantasy Flight dice and different custom rulers and so on and so forth. But it works. It gets you the feel right. Imperial Star Destroyers are big and ponderous and can't turn for toffee, and conversely, Rebel ships zip around like mad. As long as you don't get hit, you're fine. But if you get hit, the combined firepower of an Imperial Star Destroyer is probably going to ruin your day.
As it would.
Which is quite how it should be.
Indeed.
Yeah, and then they add fighter squadrons to the list, so you can you can have hero fighter squadrons, so you can have Luke's squadron, you can have Wedge, etc., etc., etc. It works. It's good fun. I've been enjoying it.
Cool. How about you, Mr. Hobbs? What was your number 5?
My number 5 was a classic. It's Net Epic.
Oh wow!
Which we did the Epic show back in April, and so was prepped for that. I started playing quite a bit of Epic, or Net Epic, the particular variant I was playing in the early part of the year, and just remembered how much I enjoyed it. And it was just so nice getting old figures back on the table and blasting around. And me and my mate Mark had some brilliant games. And then we had that great show where we got to speak to lots of cool people, and yeah, just a real retro buzz, and I loved it, and I just want to play more of it. It's a 20-year-old game that I enjoyed as much now as I did when I was 30 odd.
Net Epic again isn't a game I've particularly played. However, when was it? I think it was at might have been the other Partisan when I happened to see some minis. I think it's from Vanguard, because Vanguard. But not their 6mm ones, but their 3mm range.
Yes, they just started doing that.
Yeah, they started doing that, and I looked at that and thought, "Ooh, I could really go for that." So I am very tempted to do it, but do it in 3mm rather than 6mm. Which that way probably madness lies, but having said that, I maybe kind of work. Yeah, as in classic Space Marine when it first started, when they were doing things like Horus Heresy.
Yeah,
Right at the start, I could potentially see myself doing something with that, but with some alternative miniatures. So
yeah, good.
Maybe later in the year.
Great game.
Maybe later in the year.
Yeah.
Cool. So I shall have to come to you for some lessons, I think.
So what's your number 5?
Right. My number 5, it's actually the game we have played the most of this year. It's Dungeon Saga, the Mantic dungeon crawler. We've been playing this for probably about 6 months. I think Dave finally succumbed and bought a copy of the game at Salute this year. That's Mr. Luff. And so we started playing it second half of the year. Generally, it gives a really good game. We do have one issue with it, and I don't know whether it, now. I mean, I'd like to hear from somebody else who's played it, but also whether it's just because it's at the same time it's a feature that still exists in other games. Is it me? Or does Dungeon Saga seem sometimes not so much a dungeon bash game as a race game?
Well, because of the countdown.
Yeah.
Ish.
Yeah.
Maybe not.
I think it needs that mechanic.
But at the same time, I'm thinking, well, hang on a second. In other scenarios in other games, I mean, I don't have this particularly the same issue with the fact that you have limited number of turns in say, Conan, for example. But although it's just a case of we need to play more scenarios because we've only played like 2 or 3 scenarios, and there's definitely one where it's definitely a race to. I mean, like I think it's the second scenario where you're racing to build the amulet and get it together before time runs out, what have you. I don't know. That's our only downside. In otherwise, it's a perfectly good dungeon bash.
I think it's more, to be honest, that for some of the the more time-limited scenarios, it almost becomes an exercise in problem solving against the clock, in working out the optimal way to take on the mission such that you don't waste actions.
Yes.
And I'm not sure this is necessarily a bad thing. There's a couple of the scenarios that we've played so far that I've looked at and gone, you know what, in the interests of not feeling that you blew it because you faffed around for really not very long, that some of the scenarios could possibly be one or two activations longer. But I don't see an essential problem with the fact they are races against time. And I suspect that as you get better at playing Dungeon Saga, it will become less of an issue.
I just wish I was better at opening doors.
Yeah, that's part of your problem, isn't it?
It is indeed. It has to be said. Yes, there is a fundamental issue we have here.
The other thing to be aware of is you should probably play under the assumption that your scenario is going to get shortened by one turn from what you expect.
Yeah, because there's always going to be
which is possibly a spoiler, but
hey ho. Well, okay, so we've had a really good time with Dungeon Saga this year, but we did have that bit of a caveat to say. But it's when you compare it to the Dungeons and Dragons board games, for example, which are a bit more of a dungeon, more of a dungeon crawl, not necessarily with a time limit. And that was it. And that was the only thing. As you say, this whole thing of optimal time to complete the mission, which sometimes mean actually it's better to avoid a fight or try to avoid a fight rather than having that fight. But interesting game, and as I say, we've got an awful lot of it to get through. So it will be interesting to see how that changes as we go through all the different scenarios, and how our perception of the game changes. But that's my number 5, Dungeon Saga.
Mm-hmm.
Right, time for number 4s.
That'll be me then. My number 4 is the X-Rampant series of games. I'm not going to try and pin it down to one, given that the one I've been playing is a hybrid of Lion Rampant and Dragon Rampant. But the core system is basically what we're using for Direwolf Rampant for the club Game of Thrones tournament. Ladder, league, call it what you will. Really enjoying it. Nice system. We've tweaked one bit of the rules, which is that we now require 3 failed activations before you don't get any more, which I think removes some of the frustration factor. But other than that, it's a very nice system. Minimal amount of stats to record for a given unit, in that everything rolls the same number of dice. Your stat line just governs what your success number, your target number is, etc., etc., etc. Nice little system. Seems to repay all the things you'd want it to repay as a war game, like proper use of combined arms, like standing out in the middle and in the open with a lone archer unit will get the lone archer unit killed, as it should. And equally, trying to charge into things without some form of supports will probably get you killed. So, yeah, for what it does, very nice little system. Cool. Really enjoying it.
So X-Rampant series along with Slight House Rules then?
Yeah, pretty much.
Cool. How about you, Mr. Hobbs?
My number 4 is Conan. Just because it's Conan. Great board game, fantastic miniatures, fantastic rules, really immersive, great mechanics. I can't think of anything wrong about it. It's just a fantastic game. I just wish I'd played it more.
Yeah, that is the one reason why it's not made my top 5 this year, is that I haven't actually played it enough.
Every time I played it, I've had a blast. And yeah, I just wish I had more time to play it a bit more, because it would be right up there.
Yeah, I mean, we're hoping to actually play, the pyramid, the pyramid scenario. Excuse me, the pyramid scenario book that came out. We're hoping to play that alongside Dungeon Saga this coming year. To make sure that we get Conan out to the table. I mean, I did actually manage to pick up the 3 expansions because they actually came to retail this year, as opposed to just being being on Kickstarter, and I'm really glad I bought them. Yeah, miniatures fantastic. Yeah, it is a great game. It is a really good game, and I'm finally getting around to the idea that I'll probably have to paint my minis.
Ooh, careful now.
I know
That's a bit of a rabbit warren there, mate. You gotta be careful.
it's a long slippery slope.
Yeah, it would have.
Yeah,
if this had been a top 10, I think it would have been my number 6.
Oh, it would definitely been in my top 10, but again, I mean, that was the thing with something 5. There were so many good games this year, and so many games that were just outside my top 5.
Yeah.
But yeah, Conan was just outside there. But yeah, agree. Cracking game.
And what's your number 4 then?
My number 4 is Test of Honor, the samurai warband skirmish game from Warlord that came out at the start of the year. Had a blast playing this year. Hasn't got to the table as much as I wanted it to, primarily because, again, it's like, get all my figures painted or what have you. But the times I've played it, I have really enjoyed it. There are issues. Wish they fixed the cavalry rules. But
It's better than open combat. At least it has some.
Great little game. Really enjoyed it. Since they've got the FAQ out and the new rules they've introduced in the Brigands expansion and what have you, it has resolved a lot of the issues they had at the start of the year. There were a couple of caveats around the rules and the fact that, basically common sense prevails sort of thing. It's a great little game. Samurai Warband, what's not to like? It's cool. Really enjoyed it.
Cool. So we're on to number 3s. Mr. Whitaker.
My number 3 is Gaslands.
Oh, wow.
Fundamentally, because it is a game that's past due. For those of us who grew up with things like battle cars and car wars, this is long overdue, and Mike does appear to have come up with some really nice mechanics for a really, really nice little system that is possibly the most minimal outlay war game once you've paid for the rules and the templates if you're using them of any we've reviewed this year. How much did you spend on cars, Neil?
I think it was about 18 quid.
That much?
I did buy like 10.
Oh.
And then I was looking at a couple of the conversion packs that a couple of people do that they recommend on the forum. So I think in total it might end up costing, other than the templates, it might end up costing about another 20 quid.
Oh, it's a terribly, terribly expensive game.
I can see that my problem was that I bought my Matchbox cars from Asda rather than Poundland. But there we go. So that's probably the problem.
Clearly the place to go was Poundland. Or, in fact, Amazon. There's a couple of box sets of 36 cars for about a tenner on Amazon if you want to go that route.
There we go. At least that also then means you can start breaking up cars and using things to spare wheels and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. But, yeah, it's I mean, go back and listen to the show. Brilliant.
Yeah, I just haven't had a chance to play it this year. So I got everything. Bought my set of cars literally the week before Christmas, and just haven't had a chance to sit down and wield, screwdriver, etc.
Well, I'll be honest. I have pretty much only sat down and fiddled with it solo with the templates, but it was enough, and watched a couple of online plays. But it's definitely enough to think, yeah, we're going to play this down the club because it's just a really quick win for. There's nobody got a game this week. Dig out some cars, dig out some templates. Let's have some fun.
Cool.
So definite kudos to Mike Hutchison for his first game.
Right then. So, Mr. Hobbs, that was Mr. Whitaker's number 3. How about your number 3?
My number 3 is Arkham Horror, the card game.
Oh, yes.
These card games have been a little bit of a revelation to me in the latter part of this year, because I've gone from not ever playing one to now owning lots for 2 of them. And the reason Arkham Horror is in there and not Lord of the Rings is because we've just played Arkham Horror a lot more. I meet up with my mate Mark once a week, and we play a game between the 2 of us, something small and quick, and Arkham Horror just fits the bill. It's immersive, it's fun, it's challenging, you never know what's going to happen. Great campaign system in there. It just yeah, it just completely changed how I viewed games this year. It's really fantastic game.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I hate to say, but from what I've played of it compared to Lord of the Rings, although I really like Lord of the Rings for the universe and most of the bits and pieces, I do think that they've got the campaign system for Arkham Horror better.
Yeah.
But yes, it is very, very well done.
Mm.
Really impressed with it.
Yeah, like I say, I mean, it was a toss-up between the two, and this one came out top because I played Arkham Horror more. So, yeah.
Yeah, again, it's a great little game. I completely agree with you. Another one that is just outside my top 5. I only played it a couple of times, had a great experience.
Well worth picking up.
Definitely. So, on to my number 3. My number 3 was a game that I hadn't played until this year. And then having played it, discovered, you start asking yourself questions like, so why didn't I buy this in the first place? That game is Star Wars Imperial Assault, one of the many Fantasy Flight Star Wars games that are currently around on the market. But this is the Star Wars Dungeon Bash. Really good game, well implemented.
It's Rogue One, the board game.
Yeah. It is a really well done game. Good mechanics, challenging, and at the same time, it's Star Wars in a box. If you're a Star Wars fan, what's not to like? It's really cool. I really enjoyed it, and I'm actually looking forward to seeing what it's going to be like with the app as well. I'm thinking with when they've done this new app for it, I'm just wondering how much that is likely to change the game.
I have the app. I'll report back sometime on probably the next episode, but one since Anne and I are going to play it.
That's something we're going to do again, start of the new year, because we're halfway through a campaign at the moment, and we don't know whether to finish that bit of the campaign or whether to ditch it and start and start the campaign from the app. Having said that, if you've got all the campaigns from the original game, then that is the one thing. At least you can do either way around. Yeah, so we've got we do have an awful lot of material to play through, especially since the person who owns it, hello Dave, kind of went a bit all in on it.
Yeah.
I haven't yet.
And I think the app is going to work similar to Mansions of Madness, where it's going to give you a different scenario each time.
Yeah.
So you're not going to know what's happening. So.
I'm looking forward to doing that. So, but as I say, that's been a very pleasant surprise this year, and I'm very, very glad I finally got around to playing Imperial Assault. It's Star Wars. What's not to like? Yeah.
What do we all think of The Last Jedi then?
I haven't seen it.
All right, I withdraw the question. Just go see it.
Yeah, I'll get on to it.
He's obviously really bothered about it.
Yeah, you can tell, can't you?
You can, yes. Okay, so that's our number 3s. So on to our number 2s.
I'll be me again. Having rather teasingly slagged it off just now, my number 2 is in fact Open Combat. We've had a club Border Reavers campaign using Open Combat with a few little variant rules to add firearms for most of the year, and I've had an absolute whale of a time. Again, it's one of those, it does the simple without being simplistic thing, which I'm finding I need for club games where I'm a player, and just really enjoying it. It's a great way of doing little RPG like warband skirmish games in an era before automatic weapons. What to say? I mean, we've had Carl on the show, and I think it's a great game, and it helps that he's brilliantly enthusiastic about it anytime you catch him at the show. And there are new supplements out, which we probably ought to pick up and see what we can do with at some point. And Carl, you promised me the firearm rules. Where are they?
Yes, it is a great game.
It is.
You can just do so much with it.
Yeah. It's like I don't know if you remember, but back the original 3 books D&D, Gary Gygax described as was it a time and motion study for the fighting man? Back when it really was a small melee combat rather than a role playing game. And this is fundamentally what open combat is. If you're sort of stuck for a set of rules to replicate some obscure little skirmish that you want to replicate, just reach for open combat, set out a few guidelines for how people should build their forces, and there you go.
Yeah, definitely. It's great. It's just, I love it, and I just wish I had more time to play it. Good. So, my number 2 might shock a few people. It's a Napoleonic game. It's a big battle Napoleonic game.
Really?
Yeah, it's Over the Hills, by Aidan Quinton. Yeah, I've been after a large-scale Napoleonic game that I could play in 15mm for years, literally years and years. I've never found one that I actually liked completely. And when we had Aid on the show and he was describing it, I just thought this just ticks all the boxes, and it does. It's a fantastic game. It's just allows me to get all my figures out. It's got nice mechanics in it. It's got the basic rules which you can then expand out as much as you want with all of the optional extra ones, which just give you more complexity and more changes and more flavour. It plays quickly. It's got nice mechanics. It's quick to play. You're not fiddling around with protractor trying to work out how far a unit can wheel if they're coming up a hill in winter. None of that rubbish. It just allows you to get your figures into play, and it's fun, and it just feels right for a big Napoleon game. It feels right, and so it's up Over the Hills. Fantastic game.
Does it pass the acid test for Napoleonic games? If you put a British line on a hill and charge a French column at it, do the right things happen?
Yes.
Good. There you go then.
The French lose. Yes. Usually quite horribly. But if you chuck some artillery and force that line into square, they're going to get mullered.
There you go.
Yeah. Combined arms work. They really work.
Gee, I think we've heard that one before today.
Yeah. You're not forced to do anything, but if you use the tactics, you get a really good result. So it's not the rules telling you to do it. It's the use of the tactics working because of the rules. If that makes any sense at all to anybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't got a chance to play it. Almost played it when you did that demo game of it, except I got distracted into doing a demo game with AD of Forager. Yeah, it's on my list of things to try. Although it's another subject, but interestingly, I'm kind of thinking I'm starting to get a bit distracted with different Napoleonic games, and may not actually get around to playing games with figures outside of Forager. But that's another subject completely. We'll step away from that for now. Yes, no, good game. No, it looks a good game. It looks a good game, but I just need to try it. But it certainly sounded interesting when we chatted to him about it. Cool. All right, my number 2. Shock horror. It's another board game. What's more, it's another Star Wars game. So, if Imperial Assault is Rogue One, the board game, then my number 2 is 4, 5, and 6 all wrapped into one. That's Star Wars Rebellion. So the whole point with Star Wars Rebellion, it's the overall story arc of the Galactic Civil War. So you have all the characters from episodes 4, 5, and 6 as we now know them. Except we all know they weren't 4, 5, and 6 back in the day, but there we go. Anyway, so you're fighting the Galactic Civil War, and you're fighting over, is it 24 planets, 18, 24 planets, something like that. And it's quite asymmetric. It's quite asymmetric in the fact that The rebels basically have to survive long enough to get the rest of the galaxy annoyed with the Empire to the point where everybody rebels. For the Empire, your simple task is to find and destroy the secret rebel base. And it is surprisingly thematic. I was massively surprised when I first played it, just how involved it was and how much the game that you played reflected in the films and the situations as you saw, as they came out, or alternatives thereof. With the fact that you can play particular missions and then particular characters allow you to do different things on both sides. It's a really good strategic version of Star Wars, and you feel like you're playing, as I say, all three Star Wars films. It's great fun.
Yeah, it is a good game. A nice long Sunday afternoon game. I would class it.
Yeah, I mean, there is that. It's not a short game. It's not a short game. It's not a game that you could complete in under 3 hours. But having said that, it's not a game that it's not a 3-hour game that you wished was finished in an hour and a half.
No, it's a 3-hour game that you wish lasted another hour because you're having so much fun.
Yes, I agree. Yeah, so it's a long game, but it doesn't outstay its welcome. I haven't played the Rise of the Rebellion expansion with it yet. I think that's next on our list to do. But the games we've played with it so far, we have had a ton of fun with it. It's really good. Again, it's a very good implementation of a Star Wars game by Fantasy Flight. Cracking miniatures, great board, great components. What's not to like? Cool.
I mean, let's be honest. Fantasy Flight this year have really knocked the ball out of the park, haven't they? With the games that they've released. Well, probably the last 18 months, 2 years.
Yeah, they really have proved that when it comes to not just production quality but game quality, they are the people to beat these days. I think more so even than Games Workshop, because Games Workshop have been expanding what they've been doing again, and let's be fair, they've been doing a very good job of it. But they don't do the breadth of game that Fantasy Flight do. And I think Fantasy Flight have proved themselves to be the top game company this year.
Yeah, just for the themes, just for the flavour of the games that they're producing. It's not as if they're just cookie cuttering games out and reskinning them and just flogging them on.
No.
Each of the games that they produce has the right flavour in it.
Yeah, and it's the right flavour and at the right level as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. For example, you say, Imperial Assault and Rebellion. Well, yeah, they're both Star Wars games, but they play very differently. But they work so well within and of themselves.
Yeah. And with the Cthulhu stuff that they've been doing and the Lord of the Rings stuff, each of those games feels like you're in that mythos, that you're in that backstory, shall we say?
Yes, and and then as I say, when you start going on to things like production quality, artwork, and stuff, dearie me. Yeah. As I say, I know I go on about Lord of the Rings artwork as well, but I mean the artwork they do for the Cthulhu games as well is just stunning. Got some really good stuff in it. Right. So that's our countdown from 5 to 2. Before we get to our number ones, shall we keep our listeners in suspense about what our number one favourite games of the year are? Although I suspect, given what we've said so far, our number one games of the year for each of us may be self-evident. However, let's chat about a couple of other different things for this year. So, okay, we've talked about the best. Let's talk about our Turkey of the Year, shall we? Or our most disappointing game of 2017. So, Mr. Whittaker, do you have your turkey for 2017?
Yeah, I have my biggest disappointment, which is probably more a biggest disappointing announcement, and is going to give the lie to what you lot have just been saying, in that I'm still completely at a loss to understand the point behind Star Wars Legions. I'm sorry.
That's a bit controversial since you're talking about a game that hasn't even been released yet.
Yes, but I'm still, as I said, it's Imperial Assault with bigger figures and slightly bigger units and less focus on the heroes, as far as I can tell, without being big enough to do the massive battles in Phantom Menace or whatever. And I'm just, it seems to me that it doesn't fit in with the rest of what Fantasy Flight have been doing with the Star Wars universe, and well, I will be buying it. So anyway, to each their own. Consider it controversial. Slander to the usual mailboxes.
I am kind of with you here, Mike. It's
well, there you go. Then.
Yeah, I was really excited when I first heard about it, but when I saw the figure scale was just that bit more, and again, I just felt like you. I just thought, where does it fit? I don't know. I need to see it being played. At the moment, I'm quite cool on it. I haven't pre-ordered it or anything. I want to see what it plays like, and then decide whether I want to get it. But at the moment, there's no pressing need for me to run out and buy it. There's nothing saying I gotta have this in my life. It's a game of okay. So we could be completely wrong. They might have come up with something fantastic, but at the moment, I'm still lukewarm on it.
Well, you're both wrong because I've just got to have it. I'm sorry, but but you see, and again, this is where I think part of the issue arises. You see, despite the fact that Imperial Assault appears in my top 5 number of games, I don't actually own Imperial Assault. That's one I think says, it just seems actually strange to me that, looking back, why, considering how big a Star Wars fan I am, I don't own Imperial Assault. I can't quite work out what happened at the time and why I don't own it. Anyway, but
I don't own Star Wars Armada. What can I say?
So I'm definitely getting Legion because one of the reasons is I don't own Imperial Assault. So and I can see the market they're aiming at because they're aiming at what is effectively the 40k market and taking the Star Wars franchise along to it. So I can see why they're doing it. If you already own something like Imperial Assault, I can certainly see why you'd ask the question, well, why would I want Legion as well? I suspect in that particular instance, they're looking to actually market it at a different demographic. And that's why they're doing it.
So why are there so many people saying that it's going to kill Imperial Assault?
I can't see why it wouldn't kill Imperial Assault because it's fundamentally a different type of game.
Neither can I.
The only way it would kill Imperial Assault is by, and I can see the only people who are saying it will kill Imperial Assault are those people who play Imperial Assault competitively and therefore play it as a skirmish game.
Yeah.
If you play Imperial Assault as a 2-player skirmish game, I can see the argument.
Yeah.
But why would you? Yeah. Okay, I know people do, but it's Imperial Assault, say a Star Wars dungeon crawl, a cooperative dungeon crawl, and that's what I bought it for.
Yes. It will be interesting to have this conversation in 12 months and see where we are.
Couldn't agree more. So, having opened that can of worms, Hobbsy.
All right, mine.
So then, Mr. Hobbs, what is your biggest turkey/disappointment of the year?
It's lying rampant. After what Mike just said. I played it once. Matt from Glenbrook Games and Ralph put on a fantastic game for us, and the game was fantastic. We had fantastic miniatures, and it was a lot of fun. And I just walked away from it thinking I don't like some of those mechanics. The one that Mike that you've house ruled with the losing your activations straight away. Didn't like that. I don't like the fact that you can't go within 2 inches or so of another unit. It just felt flat. I really wanted to enjoy it, and it was nice and simple to play. The mechanics were simple to learn. We had a great, it was great fun playing there. But I just walked away thinking, And yeah, so yeah, that's my turkey of the year.
Right. Neil.
Neil.
Okay, so not so much a turkey as a disappointment. So my disappointing game of last year is Dark Souls. And interestingly, the reason I think Dark Souls has fallen foul is because, if anything, they have tried to be too faithful to the computer game from which it has been spawned. Production values of the game are great. The miniature quality is fantastic. So production quality of everything that they've done for the game, you cannot fault. The boss fights are really interesting. The problem is, and I mean, again, I've not played the video game, so I stand to be corrected, but I think fundamentally part of the video game is the fact you have to grind through levels to level up your character to get better gear, so you can take on the bosses. And the whole grinding functionality is fundamental to this style of video game and works very well in video games. However, what they've done is they've taken this same grinding mechanic and transferred it over into the board game, which basically means that in order to get to a boss fight, rather than just having to fight through a dungeon to get to the boss fight, you really have to do that same set of levels several times, because you need to run through it in order to level up your gear, to basically get better gear and level up to the fact that you can use the better gear before you do the boss fight. And then you rinse and repeat, because actually the first time round you've got a minor boss and then you've got the major boss. So potentially you're in a situation where you're doing this dungeon to a boss fight, except without doing the boss fight at the end, 3 or 4 times before fighting the boss, and then you've got to do that again. And these aren't. But the thing is, getting through that initial dungeon is not a quick process. So we found we were doing a learning game, and it took us over 3 hours to get to the first boss fight. And it's like, well, that's only halfway through the game.
There is kind of a parallel to Dungeon Saga here, except that in Dungeon Saga you're doing the same dungeon again and again until you get the timing right.
Yes, and from that side of things, actually, but the thing is, the game ends. In Dungeon Saga, you play through the scenario until you get the timing right. But
at least once you get the timing right, you go, ta-da, yeah, beat the bad guy on the next one.
Whereas actually, fundamentally from Dark Souls, it's a case of fight through the dungeon, go back to the campfire, get new stuff. Fight through the dungeon again, get new stuff. Fight through the dungeon again, get new stuff. Right, okay, go back, fight the boss. And that's only half the game. And I think that's where the flaw is the fact of, whereas, that, as I say, that grinding mechanic, which works so well in video games, just doesn't transpose in the same way to a board game. So interestingly, when they were demoing the game prior to it coming up on Kickstarter, they were demoing the boss fights. And the boss fights are actually really good, really well done, and really interesting. But potentially they're the best thing about the game. And the whole process of getting to the boss fight in the first place is just long and laborious. And again, doesn't reward you for the amount of time you have to put in order to do it. And that's the problem. It's a game that outstays its welcome.
Yeah, sounds a bit rubbish, doesn't it?
Yeah. As I say, they did a really good job with the production with the production of it. I mean, admittedly, it's overrun, and they've had several issues with producing some of the monsters, and they're massively late, and they still haven't produced everything, and so people aren't necessarily happy with everything they've done. Everything they've produced is very good. I think the game has a fundamental flaw with it, which is a bit of a shame.
Oh,
so,
Favourite miniature?
Oh, okay.
Favourite miniatures.
Favourite miniatures. So this is what? So is this new miniatures range, or range we've discovered, or what?
It's up to you because you put it in the list.
Fine. I know what mine is. So
Okay, then off you go.
definitely the Bad Squiddo range of females from Homefront.
Good call.
They're just gorgeous. I love them.
Yeah.
Whole bunch of women's land army, women's medics, WI with shotguns, you name it. They're just fabulous sculpts. They're lovely. They just fit in perfectly with my home card army.
Oh, yeah, perfect for that, aren't they?
Oh yeah,
Yeah, they're just brilliant.
Really, yeah, it's a lovely range. And on the last show, you would have heard Annie going on about them, and you could just hear the passion in her voice.
Yeah, and quite right. And it shows in the figures. They're wonderful. What more can I say?
My favourite miniatures of this year are my Lord of the Rings figures that I picked up. All of them. All of them. All many hundreds and hundreds that I bought. I love them all. And yeah, I bought a couple when they first came out back in 2000, and I didn't like the rules, so I didn't buy them, and I've held off. But now it's like the floodgates have been opened, and I'm just.
He liked the miniatures so much, he wrote his own rule set for them.
I just happened to have a handy rule set that we work on. It just fitted nicely. But yeah, I love them. I love the look of them. Say what you want about the Peter Jackson films. I thought the Lord of the Rings film was very good. Wasn't so keen on The Hobbit, but the visualization in those films is fantastic. Because they had Alan Lee and I can't remember the other guy. Working on the look of things. The fact that Games Workshop were able to use their sculptors to recreate that look in miniature form, it just works. So yeah, I love them, and I've got lots. So that's mine.
Cool. I'm probably going to have a tie. Right. Although I haven't painted them at all yet, I am really, really pleased that Conqueror Models released some Dark Age Dwarves, because I really regretted not buying them when Vendel Miniatures did them. So I am so pleased that they've re-released them, and they would almost be my favourite, except they were put to the post by Oathsworn's Burrows and Badgers range.
Can't really argue with those. They are lovely.
They are superb. So much character inside anthropomorphic mammals. Michael's done a fantastic job with them, and I cannot wait to paint them. They're on my painting list for this year, for 2018, because the full game's coming out hopefully in April. But no, they're just a fantastic range. So much character, so well sculpted, beautiful figs. Right, so that's our favourite miniatures. Okay, favourite gaming experience of this last year. What got your juices flowing the best?
Oof, that's a good one. That's a very good one. I'm going to go for an honourable draw between two things the club put on. One of which is the WAB 1.5 Age of Arthur tournament that Andy Hawes ran, which I think proves that it's still a very nice set of rules, provided you don't play with a bunch of power gamers. And some really pretty figures, some excellent sportsmanship, some great games, and some rather awesome cake. And Posh Lard, where I got to fulfill one of my I Ain't Been Shot By ambitions and try and do Ken Maxey's Battle as an I Ain't Been Shot By war game, which was absolutely brilliant and proves that Rich Clark should never be allowed in command of tanks ever again. He's never going to live that down.
How about you then, Mr. Hobbs?
I've got one outright winner, but I've got 3 second places. If I'm allowed that many.
3 second places? Oh, yeah, go on then.
Yeah. Okay, so my second places are a game of Command and Colours Epic that 6 of us played down at Firestorm in the early part of the year, where we did Borodino. And just just a fantastic game experience. Good mates, great rules, good board. Command and Colours. The Puller he's one of my honourable mentions. Anyway, but using the Epic rules and the synergies between the players, and it was just fun. It was just we all walked away just going. That was that was special. That was a really special game. So that one was one of my second places. My visit to the expo. To Birmingham, to the UK Expo, probably changed how I look at games completely. We'll probably talk more about the Expo again, but what an event. Absolutely fantastic event. And the last of my second places was the trip that me, Jim and Aid took to Lard Island to show Rich and Nick our scribblings for a little fantasy game, and it worked. And we had a great 2 days, and they liked the rules, and they want to produce them, and a good curry as well. And it's just a fantastic feeling that the work that we put in, the 3 of us had put in, wasn't pushed away and told us that nobody said it was rubbish. Nick and Rich were both really interested in taking it forward, and it was just what we all needed. So that's my number 2s. But my number 1 is drum roll, please.
Drum roll.
It is the annual pilgrimage that we all make to Evesham in June. It's OML.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah, it is the finest wargaming event in the UK of any year.
Huge kudos to Aid.
Yes. So, Mr. Deacon, you do a fine wargaming event, and to all of the lardies who go there, thank you, chaps.
And do come on the Friday night, because having a chance to just sit and chew the fat is...
Oh, yeah. It's now turned into a 2-day event for me. Possibly 3.
Same here.
And, yeah.
Sunday breakfast.
Yeah, it's good. It's great. It's a really, really good, fun event with great people, good beer, fantastic games, and it's my highlight of the year for wargaming. So thank you, Aid.
Are you booked for next year?
I haven't booked my hotel yet. I must go and get that sorted out.
Oh, I have. Way ahead of you.
So yeah, that's my meal.
Right. Best gaming experiences. I think number 2 would be Operation Market Garden. That was great fun. It has to be said that is really good fun.
It was my number 3, but I was restricting myself somewhat more than you guys appear to be.
Never restrict yourself, Mike.
My favourite gaming experience of this last year was actually the Saturday of the UK Games Expo. So going around the UK Games Expo with yourself, with Luffy, and my other mate Dave, or as he was known on the day as Mike Whittaker's stunt double. It was just a really good day. A really good day's gaming and wandering around, and of course, especially when you've got both Mike and other mate Dave who have not, to complete something completely new, and kind of introducing them. And of course, with the fact, especially as well, it was the first time at the NEC, so it was a big it was something a bit different for all of us, and it was just a really good day gaming, and a really good time. Really enjoyed it, and looking forward to the possibility of us spending 3 days at the UK Games Expo together in this year. That could potentially be fun, or carnage, or very expensive, depending which way it goes. Yes, it was just funny seeing if the competition between my other mate Dave and Hobbsy, as opposed to who could spend more money.
Dave won.
Oh, definitely. It got to the point with him. He kind of went, "Oh, Dave, look at that!" And next thing you know, he bought it.
He had to hire out Sherpas at one point just to carry his stuff.
That was a good. That was a really good day. So that was the highlight of my. Of my gaming year. So we've now done our Turkey of the Year. We've done our favourite miniatures range of the year. We've done our favourite gaming experience of the year, which only really leaves us with one thing left to do.
Eat more cake.
Well, there is that, of course. What, you have cake in the States?
Sadly, no. Not yet.
I got a mince pie.
Spawn of the devil, that is.
And the remnants of a bottle of Nuki Brown.
I hope that isn't the one left over from Christmas Day.
That didn't last past 1 o'clock.
AM or PM?
PM. About an hour after I opened it.
It has to be said, following Mr. Hobbs's pictorial tweets on Christmas Eve about preparing turkeys was incredibly educational. If only we'd have videoed that would have been a most educational YouTube video thereof.
So, plans for 2018, including the Meeples cookery book, then?
Indeed, yes.
Well, should we just do the top game of the year then?
We have our number one games of the year left. So, Mr. Whittaker, what is your favourite game that you have played in 2017?
Should come as absolutely no surprise to anyone to discover it's I Ain't Been Shot One.
I'm shocked you haven't talked about that game all year.
Really? Oh, okay. Best World War II company level game. I've just really enjoyed running the club campaign. It does what you want it to do. As I was saying to Hobbsy earlier, it's one of those games where it benefits for an umpire. And the thing that happens with an umpire is it becomes awfully easy to translate players' intent into the necessary rules and abstractions to make it happen without feeling like that's getting in the way. We've had brilliant time running campaigns in places other than Normandy, and it's been fab. And I Ain't Been Shot One is one of the reasons I'm back in wargaming. It's entirely Neil and Richie's fault from back in God knows when, about 2011, about this time, when you had Rich on to talk about I Ain't Been Shot One 3, and I went, holy bleep, where has this wargame been all my life? And that's pretty much still the case.
And it's always good to see our lardies set in our top fives, where they should always be.
Indeed. So that's me.
So where are they in our top fives, Mr. Hobbs?
Well, I wasn't allowed to include a lardies one in mine because the only one I've played is the one that I'm putting together, and you wouldn't let me put it in.
Who said I wouldn't let you put it in?
You said 5 years ago. No games have been written.
I don't remember that.
Plus, it hasn't been written yet.
Oh, okay, yeah, fair enough. Yeah, yes. So you're telling me that Scourge of the Crankies is not your number one game?
No. That would be shameless self-promotion. And anyways, it's not out yet.
I mean, I must admit, I was shocked that War of 1812 wasn't in your top five, to be honest.
Again, shameless self-promotion is not what I do, Neil. It's not why I'm here. However, the War of 1812 supplement...
Yes, by the supplement.
I'd just like to say that the War of 1812 supplement is still available on the Two Fat Laddies website. And there will be a link in the show notes, if anybody's interested.
buy it now before Rich has the doubtful privilege of putting VAT on it.
Indeed, I would buy it now. Even if you got it before, buy a second one as a backup.
Okay, so Mr. Hobbs, what is your number one game of 2017?
My number one game of 2017 is, he says, pausing for effect, The Seventh Continent
Shocking indeed, horror.
by series Pulp. Yes, I played quite a bit of it this year, and it's just a game that, well, it's just completely different to anything else I've ever played before. It's completely immersive. It's completely frustrating. You have no idea what you're doing. You have to work out clues. You have to work through things. It takes forever, and I've loved every second of every game that I've played. It's just a really good, cooperative, fun game. It's card-based, lots of cards. It's great. It's absolutely fantastic.
Played it once, pledged the Kickstarter. Enough said.
Cool.
So that's mine.
I'm still waiting to be convinced by it, to be honest. I'm waiting for the reprint to arrive because somebody went in big on it. And so I might become a convert to Seventh Continent.
Once you join the Seventh Continent, Neil, you can't get out of it.
Right, okay. Which leaves me with my number one. And it may come as no surprise because I've been talking about the game ever since I started playing it. That my number one game of 2017 is Mansions of Madness 2nd Edition. For very similar reasons that Mr. Hobbs gave for Seventh Continent. Completely immersive gameplay. Fantastic playing experience. Really unique way of playing with the fact that you're playing effectively with an app. So no one from a human point of view has any idea what's going on. Tends to throw things at you out of left field every now and again. Has some very clever mechanics. Changes each time you play it. Different outcomes each time you play. Even though you might think you're playing the same game, you're playing the same scenario. How is it different? And then different things happen. And yeah, it just a completely fantastic, immersive horror dungeon crawl experience. And actually, with the fact that it's Arkham Horror, so it's a horror game, the suspense is palpable. It really does have that as part of the experience. That you're waiting for, you are waiting for things to happen, and then some things happen, and it's it's completely not what you expect. And we've had an absolute blast with it this year. We've played, I can't remember whether it's 4 or 5 different scenarios from the game, but they have all been really, really good. And the groups we played it with, everybody, with one notable exception, has been really impressed with the game. So my number one game is Mansions of Madness.
It was very interesting to play the game. I think it needs more player-on-player action myself.
Says the man who broke the game while attempting to attack another player. Which wasn't strictly actually what his card said, he just chose it to interpret in that way.
My card said I had to stop the investigators from winning.
No, your card said that you won if the investigators, if everybody else didn't complete the mission. So you decided that the best way to stop people from not completing the investigation was to murder one of them.
Yeah, therefore stopping them from winning the investigation. It's perfectly legal.
Nothing if not subtle and direct.
No. One of the things is, if you lose one of the team, you lose the investigation. Ergo, the best way for me to stop the investigators from... it's either that or I do suicide and start hacking myself with a machete. That seems a bit silly, so I attacked Jeff. It was perfectly logical in my view. And you let me do it, so it's your fault because you were the umpire.
I wasn't the umpire, I was just playing the game. It was just when you said, can I do this? And I kind of went, I can't find any rules that allow you to do it.
Neil, who had the rule books?
Whose game was it?
It doesn't matter whose game was, who had the rule books, who was telling us all the way through what to do.
I wasn't saying anything.
You were the umpire.
Boys.
Hey ho.
But it was a fantastic game.
It was a good game. It was a good game. Yes. Yeah. So rather interestingly, you may have ascertained from that list of our top fives that for I think the first time since you've been doing this as a team, all our top fives were completely different.
But wait, there's more. Let me quote from a tweet from Sean Randell. Hi, Sean. Who says, I think for the first time, board games and card games may outnumber miniatures war games for at least Mike H and Neil. From what I can work out, Mike has only played I Ain't Been Shot One. Not true, but however, if you go back and if you go back and look through people's top fives, I have one board game. Neil has 4 and Hobbsy has 3. For a grand total of 8 out of 15. So we are truly back, and despite it being usually me who's the one-man crusade on getting enough board games in, we are in fact well and truly back as being the Meeples of Miniatures podcast.
Indeed. The other thing I'd like to point out, which I found quite interesting, having put this list together, is that of my top 5 games, I only actually own one of them.
I own all mine, but Neil, when did you start playing regularly with Mr. Hickman?
About a year ago?
Yeah, that's kind of middle of the year-ish sort of thing.
Yeah.
There seems to be some sort of correlation there, doesn't there?
Slightly. Yes, I mean, so say for the first year, for the first time in a long time. I mean, I was looking at the miniatures games I played this year and you're kind of thinking, well, that's really good and that's really good and that's really good. But it's like, well, yeah, but they're not as good. I haven't enjoyed them as much as what's in my top 5. It's been a very good year for playing board games.
Yeah, here's the question then. Is this a trend in the hobby? Is it just a trend in the way we play games or what?
Well, mine's come fundamentally down to the change in our board game group this year, with the fact of it ceased just to be myself and Mr. Luff, and got Mr. Hickman and Mr. Halford involved, and so that fundamentally changed our gaming group. So actually, when it comes down to gaming, we tend to play dungeon crawls and board games. When we're together, we very rarely get a chance to play for want of a better phrase, traditional 2-player war game anymore, because we don't very often meet up as 2 players.
Yeah, I mean, for me, there's been a real shift in the way I'm playing games. Whereas before, I'd always go down to Firestorm and meet up people there and play a war game because it's got loads of space. Because I'm working from home now a lot more, well, pretty much totally, my gaming really is going down to meet Mark in the wargaming capital Wales once a week, and we tend to play board games. There's just the 2 of us, and we don't want to put it on a full table. We've only got limited time. Board games work, and card games work. Stuff we can just put out very quickly and play and have a good fun game. And we tend to keep war games for our sort of monthly get together down Firestorm. Just saying, a lot of that time we tend to play board games as well, because there's usually 4 or 5 of us or 6 of us. So yeah.
So even if you're playing 2 of you, you're more likely to get say whether it's Arkham Horror or Seventh Continent out, or like if you say, okay, let's play a war game, you're more likely to get something like Command and Colors Ancients or something like that, or Command and Colors Napoleonics out, because hey, it fits. Although it scratches that war games itch, it fits. It fits on a kitchen table sort of thing. Yeah.
Sort of, yeah. It's it's just so much simpler with playing the card games and the board games to get a game in a couple of hours without having to transport everything. Because obviously we're playing in Mark's place, so he's got very limited storage, so he hasn't got any terrain or anything. So I just have to bring everything, which means there's a lot of preparation for me to get it all. Get the armies out, get the terrain out, get it into the car, drive over there. Straight after work.
Yeah.
Whereas playing a board game, I can pick a box up off a shelf, throw it in the car, and we're ready to go. So, war games are becoming the sort of special occasion things. But the dynamic of getting together with your mates and playing a game and having fun hasn't changed. It's just the vehicle that we use to have that fun has changed.
Yes.
Comments from listeners. Welcome on this one, I think.
Now, what about you, Matt? Because you're probably out of the three of us, you're the one who's still club orientated.
To a degree, yeah. I think, although I'm expecting to move towards playing a few more board games at home, because my wife's a board gamer, and particularly a dungeon crawl fan. So I suspect you may find next year that I have probably one or more of Seventh Continent, Gloomhaven, if I decide to buy it, Conan, Dungeon Saga, Star Wars Imperial Assault will be in my top 5 next year. I suspect it's possibly predominantly circumstances, but I do think we're seeing a lot more, what's the word I'm looking for here? Less abstract, more miniatures-oriented board games cropping up over the last couple of years than we have in the past.
Yes, and I think that's probably the reason I've got more into them. Because beforehand, I wouldn't have touched a board game because I was a war gamer and I wanted figures. Now you're getting that crossover.
Having said that, the board game I got for Christmas is Counters.
Why? What to get for Christmas then?
I basically redirected a purchase with Anne's blessing into being a present from Anne. GMT Games. Dambusters Raid.
Yeah, but having said that, GMT Games are known for their hex and counter games and their game.
Oh, this is actually an area movement encounter.
But, they are known for their counter and bits of wood, as opposed to that's one reason why CNC Napoleonics and CNC Ancients is wooden stickers as opposed to miniatures.
Yes, quite, but. Enemy Coast Ahead Dambusters Raid looks absolutely brilliant. And for those of you who remember the Mad Padre running B-17 Queen of the Skies as a Twitter game, I might consider doing the same thing with Enemy Coast Ahead once I've got my head around the rules. Although I think it would work as a framework to play a narrative game in the same way that he's doing with B-17 Queen of the Skies.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. So,
wouldn't it just?
So as we sort of going through a few discussion points here. A few years ago, we talked about whether computer-generated applications would help or would have an effect in war games, and we all turned around and went, not for a while. But now we're seeing apps coming into games, especially with Fantasy Flight. Do we think that will progress more?
I'll repeat the comment I made at the time. The issue with things like Exilis was always the fact that the game had no existence without the computer game. The problem with Exilis was you had to keep up the necessary server infrastructure for the game to work. And if you ever lost that for whatever reason, the company going bust, your hosting provider going tits up, or whatever, you'd lost the game. The thing that works with Imperial Assault and Mansions of Madness is you can still play the game without it.
You can't play
Mansions of Madness second edition, you can't.
No. Can't you now? That's interesting. I'll be curious to see. Well, okay, but it's Fantasy Flight, so there's a freaking huge company behind it who aren't betting the farm on one game that is computer moderated.
Yeah. That is a good point, and I like things like Descent too, which has got an app, but is also you can play it competitively. Imperial Assault, you've got the two options. I do think that with Mansions of Madness, Fantasy Flight made a mistake by having it as app only. And I wouldn't be surprised if they actually did a little add-on which allows you to do competitive, the traditional version, shall we say.
The interesting thing is that the first edition to Madness and Madness was like Imperial Assault and like Descent in the fact of it had an overlord, and when they went second edition, they made the choice to go completely digital, which is an interesting one.
Yeah.
I personally think it really works, but I can see why some people would turn around and say, "Well, why can't we have both?" So, yeah, it will be interesting to see if they turn around and say, "Well, actually, what we'll do, we'll put the hybrid back in." And I suppose it depends on what their, I suppose, what the feedback is. The other interesting one is, I mean, the game. I was really excited to play it, and I haven't had a chance to get it out to the table yet. And that is the XCOM game, because the XCOM board game that FFG produced again is moderated by an app and cannot be played without it. And I just haven't had a chance to play that yet. So it will be interesting to see what that's like.
Yeah,
I've heard very good things about it, but at the same time,
The one thing that does improve it slightly is that, how long ago was it we discussed this? 3 years, maybe?
probably, yeah.
The likes of the Microsoft Cloud, the Google Cloud, Amazon Web Services have made setting up the infrastructure to do something like this darn sight cheaper than it used to be. You don't have to buy the servers. You don't have to pay someone else to buy the servers for you. You can just run it on the cloud, and running a bespoke game on the cloud is nowhere near as expensive as it used to be.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And also the applications as well. These are no longer big bits of software that you have to install onto your PCs or your Macs. They're coming in app form, so they run in multi-platforms. And again, that's
indeed, and especially the advance in the technology advance, which means that these apps will run perfectly well. Okay, for some people they might be a bit small, but they run perfectly well on the average smartphone. And especially when most people have decent smartphones or decent tablets these days, then whereas previously, back in I think when we first discussed it, it was like this has got to you have to run this on an iPad, and actually availability of iPads were nowhere near as much as easily as they were now. They were kind of like a bit of a premium product. And say these days, tablets, smartphones, almost everybody's got one.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting the fact that these will all run on what you carry around in your hand. So actually, availability means that the technology is much easier to use.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the most exciting things I heard, and it kind of got overlooked a little bit when the news came out, when Fantasy Flight announced that they were going to do a Lord of the Rings card game variant that's going to be app-based. Everyone sort of went on that, but the news behind it, which kind of got forgotten, was that they created a new company called Fantasy Flight Interactive to actually run all of this sort of stuff. So they're actually creating a new company to handle all of the digital output.
Yeah, that was the thing. I think that was that's the underlying really interesting thing behind this, is the fact of having proven to themselves with Manchester Madness, XCOM, and then the Descent and the Imperial Assault apps, that not only these things work and are possible, but there is a demand for it. Because basically what happened was, especially with Mansions of Madness, when they released Mansions of Madness 2nd edition, people saw what that did, and almost everybody immediately said, why can't you do that for Imperial Assault?
Yeah.
We want that for... I mean, okay, it took them 2 years to do it.
Yeah.
Or 18 months to do it, but they turned around and went, okay, yes, we can do this. As you say, it's a case of then all of a sudden, you've already got a couple of electronic game versions of a couple of their stuff, because they've done an electronic version of Elder Sign, which is really good, which is their dice Arkham Horror game. They've got an app version of Hey That's My Fish, which again is very good. And they've got an app version of Battlelore, second edition Battlelore, called Battlelore Command. They're all really good implementations, and if they're going to start doing that, and again, that's the thing. If they're suddenly deciding, right, okay, we're going to do a lot more of these, interactive based gaming, and using technology where they can, then that is going to be a really interesting development.
Definitely. It'd be interesting to see if anybody else comes up on this as well and starts using it. I mean, it hasn't quite come across for sort of a tabletop war game yet, and I don't think I can't see it actually working for tabletop war gaming, but for a board game hybrid, it's definitely working, and it's allowing solo play. It's pushing the facts for solo play, and we're seeing a lot more of that as well.
And
there's one issue that we've not sort of discussed here. If you think back to something like WAB, for the sake of argument, since it came up in conversation earlier, there came a point, and okay, this is possibly not but there are other games like it where the interest level in the game dropped enough that GW stopped supporting it. Okay, there were other political reasons for GW, but you can come up with other similar games where the manufacturers just said, that's enough, we're not going to do anything more with this. Uncharted Seas is a good example. The point is, with an ordinary book and figures game, you can still play it. If, say, Uncharted Seas had been computer moderated, when it got to the point that there was not enough interest in it for Spartan to continue supporting it, would they have canned the app? Would that have killed the game?
We've seen that happen on more than one occasion, because it wasn't just Excelis. We've seen that happen with crikey, is it Gollum Arcane? Was it Gollum Arcana?
Yeah, but we're looking at. I'm looking at the distinction here between company that's bet the farm on one game, Excelis, and has then gone down the tubes, and company like Fantasy Flight, who have had games that they have stopped supporting.
Good point. Yeah.
Would they at that point take the app away? Because doing that with a board game doesn't kill the board game. Doing it with a computer moderated game kills the game.
You've always got to have a way of playing the thing away from the net, I think, and that's why I think Mansions of Madness needs that 2-player expansion, shall we say? Because Imperial Assault, we can use the app. We can also play the game traditionally. Descent, you can do the same. So these apps are great for allowing solo play, or for people to play against a computer moderated umpire. But I think you always got to have that traditional one-on-one competitive side to every game, or make it fully co-op, like Arkham Horror and Lord of the Rings card game. You've got to be able to play a game outside of the internet,
or outside of an application, of a supported application. Yeah,
and then you just use the app to expand it and make it a bit better. I think that's the key with any game. There we go. That's a nice little discussion point. Where were we?
Comments from listeners definitely welcome on that one.
Definitely.
About the whole gamut of things we covered there. I'm sure there's some other interesting viewpoints which are just as valid.
Indeed, yes. It will be interesting to have your feedback on that, and what are your thoughts on the whole thing, and again, even to the point of would you play a game that had some sort of electronic moderation in it, or do you avoid them like the plague?
I know where I stand on that. I said I will be going for that with Imperial Assault just as soon as I can convince Anne not to spend all evening watching TV.
Cool. Right, well, on that note...
So, shall we look ahead a bit then?
Go on then.
So, what's our resolutions?
Don't do resolutions.
Resolutions. What are my resolutions?
What are you trying to achieve in 2018?
I want to finish more. You can bleep that if you like. Operation Get Stuff Done. Basically, there is sharp practice forces, lots of iron being shot by my FVs, some War of the Roses figures, and some 15mm Napoleonics that I want to get finished next year. This year, I suppose it is by the time this show comes out, isn't it? Pledge less expensive board game Kickstarters I'm never going to play. Witness Blood Rage and Kingdom Death, and quite possibly Mythic Battles by the time it eventually gets here.
What, you don't think you'll ever get to play it?
I'm sitting looking at it, and I'm sitting looking at Gloomhaven and thinking if I'd pledged Gloomhaven, it would get played. I'm not entirely sure that Mythic Battle will. It's going to wind up quite a way down my list.
You've missed Gloomhaven.
I never pledged it, and I'm really thinking I should have done, given how much Anne loves dungeon crawls and that kind of thing.
And of course, you missed the reprint of it as well, haven't you?
Absolutely.
Yeah. They might reprint it again, you don't mind.
I'm seriously wondering if I can find someone who's willing to do a straight swap, or at least a straight swap with some value added, given how big my Mythic Battle pledge was.
Okay.
But those are my two pledges. Basically, it's a moderated following of the teachings of Guru Luff. How's that?
Don't tell him, Pike. How about you, Mr. Hodge?
And also, I should also add and finish an awful lot of things on the Too Fat Lardies projects list.
Yes. For me, I think 2018 is the big thing I got to do with that is just carry on working with Jim and Aid and Rich and get that game out. Or get it up. Well, let's see how far we get. Hopefully it'll come out in 2018. If it doesn't, it'll come out in 2019. I want to carry on with all my Lord of the Rings stuff, and I'm still enjoying painting all those, so I can't see that dropping off. I want to finish my dwarf army that I started before the Lord of the Rings hit me like a sledgehammer, but I'm going to tweak that. I'm going to move away from using any Games Workshop figures, and I'm just going to concentrate on using the Avatars of War and the Oathsworn figures for that army, and just carry on playing the games that I'm playing at the moment. So lots more Arkham Horror, Seven Continent, Lord of the Rings card games with Mark, lots more playtesting of the rules, and meeting up once a month with my mates and playing fun and interesting games. I'm probably like Mike, try and keep away from some of the bigger Kickstarters. I think I've actually hit sort of peak space levels now with the games that I got, the big games. So there's none of those which are actually jumping out, and there's quite a few still to arrive. So that's me.
Well, funnily enough, I've been. I wrote 3 blogs between Christmas and New Year, all about. Because I can't. Before Christmas, I did some looking back at 2017, and then I basically went looking forward to 2018 with my plans for painting, my plans for gaming, and my potential kind of shopping lists. So you might have already seen some of read some of this if you've been following the blog.
Give us the drive traffic to your blog teaser summaries then.
Okay, right. Much like Mr. Whitaker, my key for 2018 is get stuff done. My painting output for 2017 wasn't huge, but it was better than what had gone before, and I have discovered that I can be a fairly productive painter as long as I keep going at it on a regular basis. So number one is highlight several games that I want to play and make sure I've got armies painted for it. So that's completing. That means completing some more war bands and getting all the scenery done for Test of Honor. Okay, I've actually got 2 painted warbands. I haven't got any. I've got a scenery built, but I haven't got it painted yet. So I need to do that. Finish my Planetfall 4. So I do have a full set of Terran Planetfall helixes, half of which are painted, half are not. Get that done. I do have a couple of Lord of the Rings armies because I don't know how they arrived, but hey ho. Nothing encouraged me to get Lord of the Rings armies. I don't know, but
Sorry,
I've
I'm
got
saying
those
quiet.
which I'd like to do this year. I've got a Dwarf and Goblin army which I'd like to do. Rune Wars. I want to play a lot more Rune Wars. The reason I haven't played a lot of Rune Wars this year is that I haven't painted the figures. So I want to paint my Rune, and I've actually twigged that. Okay, actually, the colour schemes I've got should mean that I should be able to paint the armies fairly quickly. So basically, yeah, its operation is get stuff done. So first and foremost, that's what I'm going to do, and then try and be a little bit more controlled on my purchases. So yeah, okay, I've got certain things that I definitely want to do. For example, my I want to finish some stuff for X-Wing, and I want to buy a few figures, another couple of ball and of Test of Honor, and some Perry miniatures and some stuff for Forager, including some scenery for Forager. But try and keep that to a minimum. So, again, concentrate on acquiring the minimal amount and the stuff I'm acquiring. If I'm playing it, paint it first. I know we've been all there before, but that's
it's that man Luff, isn't it?
It is. Well, it is. Yeah, it is to a certain extent. Plus the fact,
annoying me, he's kind of right.
Yeah, it is incredibly annoying.
Yeah. In short, we're all going to have horribly sensible 2018.
Yeah, but let's be honest with you. This is going to last about 10 minutes, isn't it? This is
probably. Well, let's face it. I've already backed another Kickstarter. I mean, at time of breaking the wibbly wobbly time remind thing.
Mm.
I mean, I've already backed a Kickstarter for 2018 already.
Which one's that?
Do you know about this one, Mr. Whittaker? Fourth quarter football.
Football. Kickstarter. Sounds of man typing a googly thing. Hello, googly wibbly wobbly timey wobby thing.
Because I played this Games Expo. It's written by a guy who is ex-UK. Well, he's a ex-football coach from the UK. His wife's an ex-UK referee. So he knows his stuff. And it's a cracking game. I really enjoyed it when I played it anyway. But,
interesting.
It's not. It's proper American football. It's not. It's none of this. It's none of this Blood Bowl rubbish, fancy football rubbish. It's proper American football. Okay, it's only 7-a-side, but having said that, I mean we play 7 and 8 aside at under 19 level.
Quite, and in fact, quite a lot of full pads practices are with NFL teams of 7 or 8 aside, aren't they?
That's it. I mean, yeah, it's got all you need. It's got three linemen, quarterback, running back, 2 receivers, and obviously relevant defensive players. It's got pretty much all you need. And obviously, with the fact it's only 7 as opposed to 11 players, it's slightly less complex. But interesting. Anyway, that's I will leave that out there.
Can I come and play your version, please?
Okay. There is as I say, there is a distinct level of sensibleness prevailing, which may last. I don't know. I think after last year, I think last year's lasted about 3 weeks.
Yeah, probably a little bit less for me.
We shall see. Does it count if it's a board game?
Ooh.
I think these days it might.
Yeah, I think so.
It's getting to the point where it might, where board games now actually do count, especially considering looking back at our top 5 of this year.
Yeah, I must admit, there's nothing really jumping out at me because normally about this time we've got a list of Kickstarters which are coming out in next year that we're all looking forward to. I haven't got anything. There's nothing. It's gonna have to be something really special for me to jump in. I will probably carry on doing the little ones which I do, like Annie does them and Phil Hines does them for Bearhead, or sorry, Boar's Head, whatever it's called. So little Kickstarters where you get sort of 20 figures, especially when they're sort of fantasy figures that might be able to use in a little skirmishy game or something like that. I would go for that. But big box games, Kickstarters, it'd have to be really, really special for me to jump in. Unless it's a carry on of a game that I've already got.
So, like, for example, we know that there's a Conan expansion coming this year.
No, that's 2019, the next Conan expansion.
Oh, is that 2019 now? Okay.
But, they got the Batman game coming out next month.
Yeah.
Or February. I got no interest in that at all.
My interest is by proxy because Josh is a huge DC fan. Although I'm at the point where I'm thinking, well, mate, if you want it,
go and buy it. Yeah.
You back it, mate.
Yeah. So it's. I've got quite a bit of stuff already planned to come next year. Mythic Battles is going to arrive next few weeks or so. I've got Age of Towers from Devil Pig that's going to be coming. I got the Heroes of Normandy tactical game which will be coming next year, and I've got the Heroes of Normandy.
How late is that?
Yeah, but hey, they always produce, and they always produce well, good stuff.
Oh, cool! And of course, you got you ordered the Bloodreach.
Yeah, Bloodreach is coming as well. So I've got 3 big games coming already. So kind of don't need anything more. And Commander Killers Medieval as well will be shipped out next year or this year. So
that's gone very quiet. But hopefully, hopefully we'll see that, and then same here. I've got 2 or 3 Kickstarters due to arrive. Of course, we got like Legends of the Fabled Realms.
Oh yeah, of course that's will be out next year as well. This year.
That's good. Yeah, that's later. That's later. Things like Spitfire, which I went in on, which looks tremendously fun. Again, that was quite a small game, but that looks huge amounts of fun. I've got Carnivale coming. Which I might go stupid on at scenery at UK Games Expo this year. You never know, because if you're playing Carnivale, you got to play it with that gorgeous MDF scenery, haven't you? So there's a few things. There's a few things coming, and plus there's a small matter of that little game called Gangs of Rome, which I quite fancy getting into.
Yeah, nice mechanics. I just don't think I don't think I'd play it, and that's the thing. I'm trying to be good at the moment, and looking at the way I play games, it's quite easy for me to step back.
Dilution of the hobby.
Yeah,
indeed.
I mean, don't tell the love, but if
for God's sake, don't tell Luffy.
Don't tell him, Pike.
Yeah. But if I'm being affected by dilution for you, then good God, what's going on in the world?
Indeed. Yeah, indeed. Yeah.
I mean, part of it, from my point of view, is at the moment at the club I'm playing in 3 campaigns. I'm running the Iron Bean Shopman campaign. I'm playing in a Border Reavers open combat campaign. I'm playing in the Game of Thrones Star Wolf Rampart campaign. It means I only have 1 club night a month free to play other games.
Yeah. It does become time.
Yes. And I want to play Sharp Practice 2. That's my next priority.
Yeah.
Okay, so by that time, one of the club campaigns will have gone, but I can't afford to.
I'm at the point where, despite the fact I'm playing 3 games, I'm playing 3 times a week. I've got enough games to be going on with to be playing in those in those time slots on a regular basis. If we're doing campaigns in Imperial Assault, in Mansions of Madness, in Dungeon Saga, in Conan, and then whether it's X-Wing, Rune Wars, Test of Honor, and Ninja All-Stars, or various other bits and pieces that I'm playing on with Josh as well. Yeah, it's like, okay, where do you start fitting other games in?
One good thing is that the campaigns that we're playing with these, especially with the board games, they are short.
Yeah.
5-6 games, that's a campaign done. And that can be your fix, so you can jump onto another game for a few weeks and then go back. So it's not like, the old days when we were playing campaigns for half a year. They are quick. Get your fix of that game, play a nice little narrative campaign for a few weeks, and then do something else for a little while, and then come back to it fresh.
That's it. Yeah. And then in the meantime, you've got other games that you can drop in and out of that will do, that will scratch different itches. So
yeah,
cool. Good stuff. Right, I think we're about done, aren't we, guys?
Yeah, that's 20.
I think that's a suitably controversial place to end it, isn't it?
That's 2017. It has been a bit of a momentous year gaming-wise, I think, for all of us.
Bit of a seed change for a couple of us. Yes. It will be interesting to see the influence that this year will have on what we end up playing over the next 12 months.
Yeah.
But it's good. It's good.
Yeah.
Great. Well, all that remains to be said then is thank you for joining us. Thank you to Mr. Whittaker from joining us from parts foreign.
You're welcome. Parts freezing and foreign.
Indeed. Yes, and enjoy your sport over the next few days.
Oh, I shall.
Yes. Thank you to parts local and freezing. For the Welsh Wizard for joining us. Thank you.
Thank you, Neil. Thank you for having me on. And yes, Happy New Year to all the Meeps. Hope you have a good one in a few days when it happens. I'm lost.
Yes. Thank you. Yes. Yeah. Wibbly wobbly.
We hope you will have rolled good dice or something.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Happy Easter. That's what I say. You gonna say goodbye then?
And it's good night from me.
It's good night for somebody else. It's good night from me.
Hang on. Sorry, I was just speaking.
It's not over till I say it's over. To quote, is it Lady and the Tramp?
Well, I am.
Something like that.
Or is it the Aristocrat?
Yeah.
It's one or the other.
Well, as I say, thank you. So thank you everyone for joining us. Happy New Year, happy gaming, and we will speak to you in the not too distant future.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the Meeples and Miniatures podcast. If you've enjoyed the show, why not share it with others by leaving us a review on iTunes? And if you have any comments or questions, you can always email the show. The address is info@meeplesandminiatures.co.uk. And you can also visit our webpage, where you'll find a complete episode archive, all the View from the Veranda podcasts, rules reviews, and our blog of hobby items and news, which is updated several times a week. This is also where you'll find the links to our presence on social media. And here you can follow us on Twitter or join our Facebook group. And finally, here you can also find details should you wish to support us by making a donation to the podcast. All this on the Meeples and Miniatures website, www.meeplesandminiatures.co.uk. The Meeples and Miniatures podcast is licensed under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives 3.0 Unported license. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks.